Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have a special guest. He's the author of the book Staying Coachable, no other than Mr. Sean Glaze. Wel- Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Sean, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Absolutely, Daniel. Thank you so much for having me. I'm absolutely thrilled to spend a few minutes with you and hopefully share some helpful information with your audience. I am actually a retired literature teacher and basketball coach. It was as a basketball coach that I learned the impact and influence of quality leadership and the importance of culture for teams to overachieve. Everybody needs talent, everybody needs strategy, but culture is going to determine how well that strategy is implemented. And as a speaker and facilitator, I'll work with organizations to help them be better leaders and teammates. And one of the books that most recently was released focused on helping teams be that much more productive and profitable and positive in terms of building an effective team culture is about helping them be not just great leaders, but to be winning teammates. And one of the elements of being a winning teammate was specifically staying coachable. And that's the focus of the story that I wrote in this book in particular.
Mr. Sean Glaze, thank you so much for sharing your talent to the world, and thank you for empowering us. What does it mean to be a coachable, and why is it important for a personal and professional growth?
That is, again, a wonderful question. Thank you so much for asking. I think that my experiences as a basketball coach were my first introduction to trying to help people improve. Who, instead of being greedy and grateful for opportunities and advice to be better in their roles, they actually, and this is not going to surprise most leaders in your audience, they were actually a little bit more annoyed with and arrogant about things. And so they didn't necessarily respond well to coaching. As a coach, obviously, I'm working with, high schoolers and even, when I work later with college athletes, and not every athlete is coachable. So not every athlete continues to improve and grow and get better and be able to adapt successfully to their team or to the challenge of their opponent. And what I found was in working with teams and organizations, the ideas of culture and leadership and being coachable are things that translate across different industries. Specifically, every leader in every organization, themselves first and then with their team members second, needs to deal with the idea of staying coachable, because you are where you are because you have been coachable up to the point that you have reached the level of success that your coachability has allowed you to attain. Every one of us was coachable at some point in the past, which allowed us to succeed to our present level of success. The issue is sometimes people become complacent, and that complacency ends up giving us a false sense of contentment. And I think that sometimes that keeps us from reaching the next level of success or climbing the next mountain or being as good as we might with the next platform or process or thing that we need to adapt to be a better teammate ourselves.
I like the way you say it. That's why I very well said, Mr. Sean.
I'm a,
Very well said. Usually, I give a
I
clap
gotta
in the
get the
middle.
applause audio for mine because it is absolutely nice to hear the applause after every response.
Yes, yes. I usually give applause in the middle of interview, but I like the way you answer. So, how can someone cultivate a mindset that welcomes feedback and constructive criticism?
Well, I will tell you what I learned it was not. And as a young coach, I was very much more demanding in terms of making commands and coercing players through consequences. You're going to do it this way. And not going to surprise most of your more experienced or wise leaders or audience members, that didn't always work out very well. And that ended up engendering more resentment and a sense of, almost rebellion from players who you liked and respected and appreciated, but they didn't necessarily want to be coerced or consequenced or commanded into behaviors, especially if they didn't understand the why behind the what. And the major thing that was a shift for me as a coach and leader, and the thing that I think that most leaders eventually understand later in their journey, is that, okay, if it's not commands and coercion, what is it that actually really inspires change within the people that I care about, that I'm necessarily leaning on and depending on to make a commitment to help to move us together to that next goal that we have as an organization. And I think that the two things that you need to replace commands and coercion with are curiosity and compassion. And specifically, the book itself is really about, and it says on the title, of course, there are 4 questions that you can ask that kind of walk first yourself and then later on your team members down that path of discovering what is the why behind me doing something differently. Why should I invest the time and energy and effort and inconvenience in changing some of what I'm doing or some of what I'm thinking in order to be better for my teammates, or better for the organization, or better for my own performance. And I think that it's questions that inspire a different awareness and a different behavior that follows.
What are the signs that someone is resistant to being coachable?
If they're breathing. I think we
For
all
sure.
get a little bit resistant to coaching because we want to, and I think that our pride and our ego, which sometimes drives achievement, I think that same pride and ego can eventually end up being a brick wall to our progression, because we want to do things our way and we want to look inside and be proud of the fact that we can figure it out. And the reality is that if you look outside yourself to the many people that can be mentors and coaches to you, that they would actually be able to not just accelerate your speed, but also shorten the path to you getting where you want to be.
So, how does staying coachable contribute to continuous learning and improvement?
Well, I think that ultimately all of our life is change, whether it's in basketball or in business or whatever industry that your listeners are involved with. There's going to always be constant change and a need to adopt a new platform or to adopt a new process or to improve in some way. And if the question is, hey, can I do my job better? The answer is always yes, if you're willing to look outside yourself and be vulnerable enough to inquire and to ask for assistance or feedback or advice. And I think that the 4 questions that are in the parable of staying coachable are powerful, because ultimately it asks you to identify, what is it that you want? What's the result or achievement or goal that you want to achieve? And then the second question being kind of, well, where am I at now? Can I actually give an honest appraisal of what my numbers are and what my performance is? And then if I see a gap between those two things, it's that incongruity of where I want to be versus where I am that then allows me to acknowledge, well, maybe I don't have all the answers. Maybe the way I've been trying to do it isn't as effective as I had wanted to assume. Maybe somebody else has the answers that I'm seeking. And then you want to actually identify, well, what is that weakness that I need to address? What is the thing that I need to learn that I don't now know? And then the last thing is, what are you going to do differently with that information? Because it's only by changed habits, it's only by action that results actually change themselves as well.
Definitely. So, what role does humility play in being coachable?
Well, uh, again, I think that one of the things when I'm speaking to a group in terms of helping leaders be better for their organizations, or if I'm speaking to a frontline group of employees about being better teammates, I think ultimately collaboration, sharing and requesting information, admitting mistakes, and seeking to share the lessons that you've actually learned yourself with other people on your team. Those are the things that are probably the strongest indication of a healthy organizational culture. How are your people talking to each other, or are they kind of in silos and withdrawn and disconnected? And so I think that the idea of humility becomes important, because oftentimes members of an organization are unbelievably skilled and talented and knowledgeable, and they go into that role with a confidence thinking that they can help. The issue is that sometimes confidence turns into arrogance, and arrogance is thinking you don't need help. And I think we all need help to be as good as we might be and to ultimately get beyond that kind of ceiling of our own knowledge and skills and background and assumptions. And so if confidence is thinking you can help and arrogance is thinking you don't need help, humility is important, because humility is that willingness to ask for help. And I think the best leaders and the best teammates are humble enough to acknowledge that they don't have all the answers, and they are willing to benefit from the value that other people bring.
Definitely. So, how can individuals seek out mentorship or guidance to stay coachable?
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of the next step, and the next book that I'm actually working on, Daniel, and I very much would appreciate the opportunity to come back on and share with you. The next book I'm working on
Yes,
is, what do effective leaders do? Because leadership isn't a position, leadership's not a title, leadership's a decision that people make to have influence on the people around them that they actually interact with. And everyone on your team is a leader in some respect if they're influencing the behavior of others. And I think that, we are coachable and we become better leaders, not because we have more experience. Leaders don't get better and team members don't get better just because they have more years of service. We get better because our awareness increases, and we become aware when we begin to notice things in those experiences. And when I have a conference or when I'm doing a team training for an organization, working on cultural issues and topics, I'll share with the group, at the end of this 3 hour session, you will have all experienced the same thing, but there's going to be 60 or 80 different versions of what happened as you walk out the door, because you're going to all notice different things in the activities and in the stories that I'll share. And I think that leaders become more aware because they actually involve themselves in three behaviors. The first is you have to reflect daily upon the interactions that you had with your team. What are the things that went well today that I want to make sure that I'm emphasizing? What are the things that I'd like to do better tomorrow that I can improve on? And then what is something that I'm not asking myself? What is something that I didn't do today that I can actually look to include or add, or be more intentional about, that I may be overlooked? And I think that there are a number of reflection questions that you can ask yourself as a leader. And those are obviously all available on my website. I've got all kinds of resources for leaders and teams. But that's the first thing, is reflection. I think the second thing is, are you really actively seeking feedback from somebody that can be a valuable voice for you to improve, that'll actually give you a pretty clear idea and an unbiased idea of, hey, here's some things that you can do. And again, I think the easiest question for a leader to ask when they're having a one-on-one conversation, when they're talking with somebody that's also a member of the team, is, hey, what's one thing that maybe I could do better to be a better teammate? What's maybe one thing that I could do that if you were in my shoes that you would do differently? And I think that idea of asking for input from others ends up benefiting from their perspective, because we don't always see as clearly as we think. And the third thing is coaching. And that's where, when I work with leaders in a coaching relationship, I think that holding people accountable and getting them to focus on the most effective behaviors and interactions that they have are key elements of them being better in their role.
So, Mr. Sean, what are the benefits of staying open to new ideas even when there are challenges existing belief or
What are the
challenge
benefits?
existing belief?
Yeah, what are the benefits of staying open? Well,
Yes.
I think that one of the problems, especially as you get a little bit later in years and a little bit more established in a role, that sometimes senior leaders especially suffer from the idea of confirmation bias. And they get distanced from the front lines and understanding some of the issues that their people are dealing with. And I think if we're not open to the perspective and the insights and the advice of others, we end up kind of putting ourselves in an echo chamber. And I think that one of the dangerous things you see happening on social media, that certainly happens in boardrooms and conference rooms and organizations around the world, is that if we only surround ourselves with people who think and feel and act and believe the same, then we don't benefit from that contradictory idea or perspective, or something that might actually give us an insight that our assumptions wouldn't necessarily be willing to share. And so that idea of being open, I think that third step in staying coachable, after you've identified where you want to be and you've gotten clear about where you are and where that gap is, it's the gap that really drives and motivates people to acknowledge the weakness and to acknowledge the fact that somebody else might have an answer that can benefit me. And if I am greedy and grateful for their input, I'm going to be a better leader, a better teammate myself.
So, Mr. Sean, what is your favorite chapter that you want to share to us in your book,
Well, that
Staying
is
Coachable?
yeah, I think that in a number of nonfiction books that they may be broken up into different chapters that kind of carry different ideas as part of the whole. The thing that I've done with each of my books, whether it was Rapid Teamwork or the 10 Commandments of Winning Teammates or Staying Coachable, is each of my books, Daniel, it are basically stories, and it's the parable's job to carry within it the kind of nuggets of content that a reader can then take away and apply to their circumstance. And so a lot of the information that would normally be in a nonfiction format is kind of woven into the story. So that hopefully it's an entertaining experience to the reader that really gives them a reason to kind of carry a highlighter with them, so they highlight some of those specific things they can implement with their team.
So, how do successful people demonstrate coachability in their daily lives?
Yeah, I think those three things that I mentioned on it. I think that idea of, are you being reflective? Are you seeking feedback, which is obviously going to be looking for advice from coaches or mentors? And are you actually applying those coaching insights and holding yourself and allowing others to hold you accountable for something beyond what is easy or convenient? And again, I say that being coachable, if you wanted to define it simply, is not just wanting to get better, but being willing to change. And that that change is what happens when we're willing to be inconvenienced by something that is more important than just ourselves.
Mr. Sean, what will be your advice for those people out there looking for a coach?
Yeah, well, there are a number of different coaches in so many different areas. Again, I've had the pleasure of working with, organizational leaders and team leaders in order to help them to establish and implement some of the things that go into building a thriving and healthy team culture so that talent and strategy can succeed. But you can probably go on, whether it's to LinkedIn or even just seeking whether it's an executive coach. Certainly, I'm available at greatresultsteambuilding.com. But there are so many different specific coaches, working on, writing specifically. If you're looking at writing or publishing, there's so many different coaches in terms of storytelling or any other aspect of your role, that I think that you'll probably be able to identify someone who has those testimonials, who can demonstrate their positive results and really benefit from staying coachable yourself.
And of course, what will be your advice for those aspiring writers out there?
Yeah, like anything else, results are always a symptom of action. And I think that sometimes as writers, we live so much in our heads that we end up talking ourselves out of the one activity that really makes us writers, which is sitting down and putting your fingertips on a keyboard and getting to the writing. You can always go back and edit, but you can't steer a parked car. So your job, if you're going to be a writer, is to make sure that you set and achieve that goal of getting in so many pages or so many words per day. And you can always go back and improve and change or adapt or edit those. But getting words on paper and thoughts on paper is absolutely the single most important thing you can do every day as a writer. You do well what you do often.
Definitely. And stop procrastinating, people. Go, go, go. If you have the passion of write, 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 write. So, Mr. Sean, what is your short-term and long-term goals in writing?
I'm sorry?
What is your short-term and long-term goals in
Oh,
writing?
short and long term. Well, my goal in writing my first book is the same in writing my most recent book. And that is, how do I help people who are where I was in some capacity to hopefully be able to navigate around the mistakes that I made. And if I can share with leaders or with team members, an insight or an idea or a tool that's going to equip them to be better in their role so they don't end up suffering through some of the mistakes and failures that I had, I think that is absolutely a win for me. So hopefully I make it engaging and entertaining, whether it's in my writing or in my speaking to audiences or in my training sessions. But ultimately, the goal is, whether it's short term or long term, how do I actually have a positive impact on leaders and teams so that they are better faster than I was as a young leader myself?
Good luck to your goal, Mr. Sean. And to sum up our discussion, what role do habits and routines play in sustaining commitment over time?
Yeah, I think that ultimately is the measure of a professional versus an amateur. Is amateurs will do things some of the time, and a professional finds a way to do things consistently, even when they don't feel like it. And I think that goes to people aspiring to write a book. That's putting the time, even when it's inconvenient, and making the decision that you're going to hold yourself accountable. And one of the most powerful things you can do is to find an accountability partner who will actually check in with you every week to give you a reason to get those things done, because you know that somebody's going to be measuring or asking about. And again, I think that hopefully your listeners will check out the book Staying Coachable. Will reach out to me if I can be of any service with their leadership or with their team culture. But ultimately, as a writer, I think the key is writers write, and you can always improve on what you've gotten on the page. But the main thing is you got to get it on the page first.
Mr. Sean Glaze, again, thank you so much for empowering us, empowering the world. And can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Yeah, you can actually find me. If you would like to connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn at Sean Glaze. My website is Great Results Team Building. On my website, you can pick up 50 free resources in my team toolbox. And again, very much encourage you to continue to listen to Daniel's podcast. Daniel, has been such a pleasure to talk with you.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Sean Glaze, because if you support him, more empowering books to come, more coaching to come, people. And Mr. Sean, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. Bye bye.
Bodycon people, see you soon.